Bengals fans are amazing. They're resilient, they're tough, but they're fun. And I'm really excited to hopefully meet a lot more of you.
Isaac has the big game. Then we became a real balanced offense for the playoff run, which I thought was really important.
He put on the greatest route running exhibition I have ever seen in my life.
He was football 24/7, and that was the greatest part of Chad.
At times, the early part, I would tell him when we were throwing deep passes, I said, don't wait too long, because I'm going to get away. If you ain't going to have the arm to get there. So, I want to run to the ball,
Well, Duke, looks like Duke's in the waiting room. I don't want to keep Duke waiting. He gave us a very limited amount of time. I know he's a busy man. Duke, what's going on, big dog? How you doing, buddy?
Jim, how are you, man? Thanks for having me on. Yeah,
Hey.
I'm real busy. I'm sitting on my porch.
Yeah, well, hey. Have a little drink going on there.
Joe Burrow has played in big games his entire life, and I would think he will be a steady hand at the bow of the ship. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if they take him all the way to the Super Bowl. I really wouldn't.
Live from the Betfred Studios in Greater Cincinnati, Ohio, it's Bengal Jim and Friends, brought to you by Gold Star Chili. And without further ado, here is Jimmy.
What's going on, everybody? Thanks for tuning in today, whether you're on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Look, I'm excited about tonight's show, guys. We're going to have a really good friend of ours, Gary Burley, part of the Bengals defensive line, the old Webb defense back in the 70s, played on the Super Bowl team in 81. GB is one of the classiest dudes you ever want to meet, man. So he's got a book out that we're going to go through. He's going to give us kind of a PSA and some awareness things that he's been dealing with. But, man, the stories that he's going to share out of this book, guys, is going to be amazing. So make sure you type in any questions for Gary. We'll make sure we throw them up there, as many as we can. Gary will be with us the first maybe 20 minutes to half an hour, talking about some things. And we're going to go through some old Bengal videos of him as well. But we're also going to talk a little bit about Jungle to the Hall 3. We're going to talk a little free agency as well. Tom and I pre-show was talking about Irv Smith. So we're going to dig into some free agency discussion here as well. I think the Bengals have done a hell of a job in free agency. But, Tom, let's talk before we bring GB on. Let's talk about on this date in Bengal history. It is April 2nd, 2004. Something happened at the stadium that day. What was it?
Well, it's a little bit like my backyard after this last winter, Jimmy. The grass just is not working. So the Bengals announced and started the installation of the artificial turf, which is still there. It's been there replaced many times. But, the grass never grew those early years at Paul Brown Stadium. So they made some changes. You can remember that bitter, whether it be muddy and god-awful, or then when it would get bitter cold, like that game we beat the team from Pennsylvania, it would be dusty and crusty and horrible. It looked like watching NFL films from the 50s and the 60s, which never bothered me, but certainly bothered the players and the players union. So the Bengals adjusted and got modern field turf.
Yep, I'll never forget, man. I'll never forget it. It was that field looked bad for a few years, really bad. With that grass.
I tell you who hated that turf more than anybody. Remember Neil Rackers, our place kicker? Neil Rackers, I every time he kicked a field goal, the snap would go back and it'd be in some god-awful divot or something, and he would miss his kick. There was one game we beat the Jaguars, and the kicker ran over to him after the game and didn't say congratulations, hi, or anything else, just said good luck, kicking on this bleeping turf. The Bengals waved the white flag on the grass and went with the field turf.
Yep. Well, let's go ahead. GB, Gary Burley is in the waiting room right now. We're going to go ahead and bring Gary on and see if our connection still works. It was working fine earlier. GB, how you doing, buddy?
There he is.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you, GB. Sound good.
Okay. Good afternoon, guys. I'm glad to see you, and I want to do anything I can to make this happen.
Yep. All right. So let's talk about a few. We want to talk about the book, Glory, the Struggle for Yards. But GB, I mean, I think if you're able to, let's share some of the things you've been through. And I know you want to create some awareness for some of the things you've been through that might help others as well. So we've got some pictures and stuff we're going to go through, some players in this book that you guys have that will be in about 2 weeks for publication. We'll get that link out when it comes out. But
okay,
what do you want to hit on first, GB? I think you wanted to hit on some awareness stuff.
Jimmy, I think we lost Gary.
I'm here.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
We just there you go. That was just you.
There
We
we
couldn't
are.
see you before. There you are.
Yeah. You're back.
Okay.
You're good.
I'm good. Well, listen, in 2014, I was diagnosed with cancer. And I was in the hospital for 4 months. And while I was there, Dave Smith called me on the phone and started talking about this book. And in 2014, Dave passed away, and we lost touch. And we didn't talk about the book anymore or what we wanted to do. So it went for maybe 2 or 3 years before we started working on the book again. And that's how we got it. I suffered with cancer. I beat that. I got the bone marrow transplant. Then I got the kidney transplant, and so on and so forth. So I had a bunch of illnesses that God saved me from. So to make a long story short, this book is my history. But not only that, it's helping a lot of people that are suffering from kidney disease, from cancer, the whole 9 yards. So it's a testament to me, along with a testament to other people, because we're all helping each other.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I think one of the things I think we've talked about before is, sometimes us as men, we think we're invincible. We got something going on. It's just going to go away. But early detection, a lot of this stuff is pretty critical, right?
Yeah, it saves your life.
So
early detection. I mean, it's a simple test to get, blood test, to find out if you're a candidate. Well, not a candidate for cancer. That's not a good thing to say, but it's a simple blood test that'll tell you if you're a candidate or not, for cancer. So I've got a staff of doctors. I've got like 14 doctors, and Dr. Diego is my guide. It's that after I was in the hospital, before I came into the hospital, I took this test, and he told me that there was something wrong. He said he needs to follow up. And so that's what happened. We followed up. I had the cancer treatments and all that stuff. And then it's amazing that God would just save me. Not just save me. I'm not saying me. I'm saying everybody that's been through cancer and survived, you need to take off your hat and praise God, because that's the whole 9 yards.
Yep. Gotcha, GB. Well, let's talk about this book. I'm very intrigued. This is really cool stuff. Tom and I are huge history guys.
Okay.
We talked about this off air prior to the show. Glory, the Struggle for Yards. And we're going to highlight specifically 4 players here. But Gary, give us a little backstory on the why behind this book and some of these players. I don't want to make any assumptions. I know the answer, but I want you to share that with our viewers right now.
Sure. Well, Burl Toller and the rest of the guys that were members of that foursome, they were some amazing guys. They did some things that we never knew about, and we're just now finding out about what they're doing. Burl Toller was an officiator that played in the same AFC Championship game that I was. I was there. He was an officiator. I'm sorry. Excuse my guys. I got this little stroke thing going on.
You're good.
But anyway, those are some of the guys. And the list that you gave me of the guys, we can go through them and just have a great time at doing it.
Yeah, let's do it. I the backstory, like Gary, that's why I love talking to you, man. Like this type of stuff. When Tom see this, we knew a little bit about some of these things, but just bringing awareness what some of these guys went through to get where they got to. So let's just kick it off, man. Let's go ahead, Burl Toller. Let's talk about Burl. So talk about this young man right here.
Well, Burl had so much going on. He was a television guy. He did, of course, he played football and he was a officiator, and he was an amazing guy because, he played football so good that the racism and all that other stuff didn't bother him whatsoever. He just kept going, and that's the story that people don't know about. They learn how much hatred that people had about football players. That was something that just made no sense to me. And that's why I started investigating the book and getting ready to write the book. And so he was one of the first.
Let's talk about so in 1965 he was the first African American referee for the AFL.
Exactly.
That was the absolute first Black official in any North American sports in baseball, basketball. He was the first.
Oh man, yes, and he was good at what he did. Wow, I'm seeing the picture for the first time. That's him.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, and Tom made a good comment earlier. I mean, Tom, what was I initially said the NFL, and you immediately said, hey, it had to be the AFL, right?
Well, I would have thought it was the AFL, and it was because the AFL in the 60s was much more forward-thinking about these types of things. The owners, the players, and then, later on at the very end of the decade when Paul Brown came in as owner and head coach of the Bengals. Because Gary and I were talking before the show, it didn't matter when it came to the game of football to Paul Brown, it was, could you do your job?
Yeah.
And, he brought in a generation after there'd been a long period of some of the guys we're going to talk about, but he brought in, Marion Motley to his Cleveland Browns and Bill Willis to his Cleveland Browns. And, they all always mark, I believe Marion Motley was a Paul Bearer at his funeral. So they thought so much of each other. But the AFL was much further ahead of any other league when it came to these sorts of things in race relations.
Yeah, so let's go. So Burl Toller, again, just very cool stuff there. Let's do a little bit of backstory. Tom, you and I were talking about this with Gary pre-show. Let's talk about Henry McDonald and the story around this guy. GB, you okay talking about Henry for a second?
Sure. Henry was an amazing running back, and I read some things about him, and that's got me started on researching on this book. And I learned so much about him that it was amazing. And I want some of these kids to learn the history of not only the African American players, but how they got to where they were. I mean, if kids can see that they got $15 a game leading up to $50 million, how did they get there? And I want kids to know about that. They have no idea of how it came. So that's where we're at with the rock and roll guy. Like I said, we talked about him for so much, and so much we learned in this game. I mean, in this book. And I want to make sure that you guys get a copy of it so we can all enjoy this.
Yeah. So Henry McDonald. So this guy right here, he played for the Oxford Pros, I think, in 1911.
Uh-huh.
They called him Motorcycle McDonald because back then he ran 100 yards in 10.2 seconds, and the world record at that time was 10 seconds. This guy could fly. This guy could flat out fly. So, Tom, tell the story what happened when he played for the Oxford Pros, and they went over to play Canton, I think in 1917, I think it was, and there was a little altercation.
I think he was running a sweep, and he was tackled rather hard for just going out of bounds, and some very unpleasant words came out of the Canton defender, a guy by the name of Greasy Neal, who made his mark in Cincinnati. I believe he played for the Reds and maybe even been a part of that 1919 World Championship team for the Reds. But he said that, and Jim Thorpe, who, being a Native American, had gone through his own fair share of prejudice and so forth, came over and got between him and told Greasy Neal, "We're just here to play ball. We're just here to play ball today. That's it. Nothing else." So, evidently it meant a lot to Henry McDonald, going forward. And Jim Thorpe was one of the true pillars of the National Football League and really all athletics. Greatest athlete of the first half century.
Jim Thorpe stepped in and broke that up. That's just awesome. That's just a cool story.
Hey, now let me ask you a quick question, guys. Jim Thorpe, what did he do after that? After football?
He was he played he played professional baseball. He played football, and he coached, I believe, a little bit for what then became the National Football League. He played, I think, to the mid-20s. He was still like first team All-Pro in what became the NFL. And I believe he coached a little bit after that. And then I think he fell in some very, very hard times.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He made me look that up real quick as you were doing it. Just Wikipedia. He played for the Cleveland Indians for 1 year. Guy was a football base. He was an athlete for sure.
Well, what was the player, not the player, but the actor that did play Jim Thorpe? I can't think of his name. Burt Lancaster. Yeah. That guy was amazing in that show, man. You just unbelievable.
All right, so we got Burrow and we got Henry, but here's one of my favorites that as we were looking up some stuff pre-show. Let's talk about, if you could, GB, Gary, Fritz Pollard.
Well, yeah. Let me come back with you just for a second.
Sure.
John Wooten, who was one of my favorite coaches, not coaches, but favorite players, and he was also my sports agent, and he started the Fritz Pollard organization. So I wanted to throw that in. So when we start about Fritz Pollard, he's an amazing man, and he did some of the things that like he was an actor, he was a radio producer, he was a writer. I mean, this guy did some of everything, and a lot of kids don't know that. And again, I say, I hope that they learn so they can go on and be better athletes and better people in general.
Yeah. So I mean, so Fritz was the first Black All-American running back, first ever African-American All-American running back in college.
Mm-hmm.
The first NFL Black head coach. I think it was the Akron Pros.
Yes.
And the NFL kind of absorbed some of those other teams in 1922. So what else you know about Fritz? I mean, there's all kinds of, this guy did everything.
I mean, I'm going to ask you to read the book a little bit more, but to listen to this guy, I had some tapes and I read some of the book, and he just did everything. I mean, if you can imagine somebody doing everything, that was Fritz Pollard. He never stopped until he was gone. He died.
Yeah, Gary, reading some of the things, there were a lot of his peers, guys that played against him, guys that coached against him, that insisted until their death that Fritz Pollard was the best running back they ever saw.
That's what they said. And the guy, John Wooten, can ditto that. And I'll get you guys on his show one day if you want to. And we'll go a little further with Fritz Pollard and some of the other guys. Jim Brown and Fritz Pollard were teammates. I mean, Jim Brown and John Wooten were teammates in Cleveland. with Paul Brown. So some of these stories, man, they just lead to other things, and we want to do that, and we want you guys to be a part of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, here's what I know. We wanted to hit 4 of these guys, and then we'll kind of tell everybody about where, how long it's going to take for this book to come out and how we can all grab it here. But
Okay.
Charles Follis, I'm sorry, I mispronounced that name. Here's a picture of him right here. So tell us a little bit about this guy right here.
Charles is a great running back. And what I can say is this, from reading the book, he never stopped. This guy, I mean, he could do it all. And he didn't care about racism. He didn't care about anything but helping his teammates become successful. And when they become successful, everybody comes out better.
Yeah. Good stuff. So, GB, we got a question for you. So this book's coming out. It's going to be published in 2 weeks.
Uh-huh.
So we will be sharing that link when it becomes available. There's not pre-order right now going on. But here's the cover of the book, Glory, the Struggle for Yards. Tom, what were you saying about this cover art, brother? You and I are on the same page with this.
Well, the first thing, Gary, is how do we get a print of that picture? That is awesome. That is awesome.
Well, I tell you what, one of the fundraisers that we're doing for the book is our celebrity golf tournament. And I will send you information out on that, but I'll also send you guys a copy of the photo.
Oh, that photo is awesome.
So you got no problem at all. No problem.
But we were looking at that picture.
Uh-huh.
And to get back into your time with the Bengals, you got Jim LeClaire, Reggie Williams, Marvin Cobb, and yourself. We've had, a lot of guys that have played with you on there, and a lot of guys have said, and it kind of surprises, not that we didn't know he was already tough, but that Jim LeClaire, even Pete Johnson said this, Jim LeClaire was the single toughest football player they ever played with.
Well, his nickname was Jacques Leclerc. And, he was like you said, he was one of the toughest. I've never been hit so hard in practice like Jim LeClaire. He was one of the meanest, nicest guys that you could ever have. He would help guys get up after he pummeled them and just do everything that he could do to be a successful ball player. I was so sad when he passed away, and his wife, Betty, called me and let me know what was going on with him. We've been keeping in touch with each other on Facebook and that kind of thing. But Jim was just an amazing guy. Pete Johnson can tell you the same thing about Jim because they practiced together every day and got the poop knocked out of them. Mm-hmm. But those guys, we're gonna honor them with a scholarship at Miles College where my wife teaches. Where she's the president. And basically, what's going to happen is Paul Brown, Coach Majors, Coach Forrest Gregg, they get honored with a scholarship, but 5 kids will get $1,000 scholarship a year until we can refurnish the money. We're up to $40,000 now, so we got enough to take care of that. But what we want to do is just keep raising money, keep having events and that type of thing, where kids can grow up at Pro Start Academy, our football academy, where we teach academics and we teach football fundamentals. So you guys got to play in the golf tournament. I will invite you as my guest, and we'll make that happen.
Absolutely, that's awesome. All right, GB, let's change it up a little bit here, brother. The book stuff's awesome. I just got a sneak peek at the book like literally a couple hours ago. Mm-hmm. The stories that I've never heard before, the awareness of what these guys went through. I'm excited. When this book comes out, we'll make sure we push this pretty hard for you, GB, and get the message out for you and educate this younger generation and help people understand what these guys went through to play a sport they loved at the end of the day.
Thank you for doing that, guys. And I'll be forever grateful for you helping us put this thing together. And like I said, keep in mind, the golf tournament's coming up in October. The book will be here in 2 weeks. And anything else we can do for you guys, let me know. If you need some other people to come on the show or whatever, I'm glad to help.
All right, GB. Hey, we're not done with you. You got another couple minutes?
Yeah, of course.
All right. So we got to talk about the web. We're going to play a quick video here. So there are so many people. I know it's been a couple years since you've been on, a year and a half, 2 years. You were on with us, and we talked about the web, and we got so many messages from people like who weren't around and got to see you guys play during that time and how damn good you guys were. So I'm going to play just a short video, and after that, I come out the video here, Tom, kind of open up the conversation on this. So we're going to go to a quick minute and a half video about GB and his defensive line mates here.
The cornerstone of the Bengal defense was the defensive line, which was a fine blend of experience and youthful exuberance. The pass rush poured in on opposition quarterbacks from all sides, with experienced hands like defensive ends Ken Johnson, number 80, and 10-year veteran Coy Bacon, number 79. Cincinnati defenses of the future will be anchored by 3 strong young linemen. Second-year defensive end Gary Burley of Pittsburgh, number 67, is a coming NFL star. While at the tackle positions, the 2 top draft choices of 1977 will be chasing down NFL quarterbacks for years to come. Although they were only rookies in '77, it was tough to fool number 73, Eddie Edwards, and number 75, Wilson Whitley. With a brilliant pair of young tackles to build around, Bengals defenses will be founded on strength far into the future.
Wow. What a great piece, man. Thank you so much.
Tom?
I forgot all about that.
Whitley, Edwards, Burley, and Bacon. And then when Coy was traded, I get the other B became Browner.
Yeah.
I guess for several years like that. But I mean, that was in the late 70s. That was the strength of the team, wasn't it?
Yeah, I have to agree with you because, you know, when you build a defensive and offensive line, that's the PowerPoint of your game. Wilson Whitley, Eddie Edwards, Ross Browner, and myself, we did something that nobody else was doing. You know, guys were playing all the time, but we had such a mixture of players that it brought me to tears to see some of these guys just keep going. And I'm saying, like, how can Wilson Whitley, Eddie Edwards, and Ross Browner and Coy Bacon be so good? And I got a little nervous. I'm saying, like, well, I got to get better. I got to do this. I got to do that. And we did. And unfortunately, Wilson passed away. Ross passed away. And Eddie and I are the only 2 left from the web. So we keep in touch all the time. And you need to get Eddie on the show, too.
Yeah. Hey,
we had Eddie on the show once. He threatened Jimmy. He was going to come run Jimmy down. So we don't know if Eddie will come back with us or not. But
well, maybe we'll change that and get somebody else to come.
No. Hey, GB, hey, he was mad because I found a picture of him. His hair was a mess.
Oh my God! I'll never forget that hairdo.
And he called me out on. I said, I'm gonna come hunt you down, Jim. I'm gonna come hunt you down for sharing that. Hey, so Jimmy, check this. This is a great question here, man. You were talking about Wilson Whitley. Brandon from Portsmouth, Ohio, was talking about the web, and Wilson Whitley died so young. Any story about Wilson that you're able to share?
Well, Wilson played at Houston, played at the University of Houston, and he was one of the greatest defensive linemen. If we could all stay together for whatever reason, we would play together for at least 10 years. I mean, that was the way I felt that we could do it. But he was the captain. Let me see. I can't say captain. He was one of the top players at University of Houston, where he was drafted from with the Bengals, and he was just a great player. I mean, I can't say anything about him but being a good player.
You got another one, Jimmy? Or
No, go ahead, Tom.
Okay. Gary, when we've talked to other sports writers, and we've talked to some of your peers from other teams, always found it, as a child, everybody is afraid of certain things.
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy's still afraid of snakes to this day. It's a running joke around here. But for me, the thing that intimidated me and scared me was the Pittsburgh Steelers of the 70s.
Ooh.
But okay, you're with me. But one of the remarkable things is talking to writers, and we've interviewed some of the guys from those teams and so forth, and listened to other people talk and secondhand. The Steelers are always referring to this, even though they didn't like the Bengals, even though Chuck Noll and Paul Brown had their problems and so forth. They weren't worried about the Raiders or the Cowboys or the Dolphins. They truly felt that if they could get by the Bengals, they were going to be okay. They were going to go on a Super Bowl run. What was the play in those guys?
Oh my God! Well, I tell you a short little story here. Remember Dwight White?
Sure.
Okay. Well, my senior year at Pitt, Dwight White was like my mentor, and we worked out every day with Dwight White, Ernie Holmes, L.C. Greenwood, and I can't think of the other guy's name. But I learned so much from just watching these guys, being out on the same field with them and practicing with them and eating with them and running with them, working out, the whole 9 yards. And Dwight became one of my best friends. And that's how the Steelers, how many Super Bowls did they go to too?
They won 4 that decade.
Oh, wow. Okay, never mind. I'm sorry. I didn't say. Yeah, but they did 4 Super Bowls. And the guys all came back to Pittsburgh. And I got a chance to see a lot of the guys and hang out with them and still work out. So to this day, I will never, ever, I will remember always of how those 4 guys got together and played as long as they did and played successfully. And love them. I love those guys.
Yeah. Hey, Gary, I want you to share a couple stories. It's like you went out of your way as a player. Tom shared a story before we got on air today.
Uh-huh.
Tom, share that story about the chin strap.
Well, that was when Gary was a Falcon. It was that your last year in the league, Gary?
1 year.
Yeah. After 9 years, I came to. I was traded to Atlanta, and I played there for a total of 10 years, and that was amazing. I mean, I just had a good time, and it was time to go.
But after that game, I had essentially he was family to me. But somebody that sat with my dad and I in our seats, he'd been a security guard in his younger age, so he could still get down. So toward the end of the game, he said, come on, we're going to get down. We get down. Now, you were coming off the field. The Bengals did win. And but talk to you for half a second. You couldn't have been nicer. I'd have thought you'd have won the game as nice as you were. But you gave me your chin strap, which meant a lot to me. Like I told you before the game, unfortunately I didn't clean it right. It hung in my room for forever, but I didn't clean it out quick enough, and it's started to change colors a little bit after you just played a full game. But it certainly meant a lot. But you had that, you had that reputation when you were here in town. Very approachable, very nice. You certainly didn't treat other quarterbacks like that, but very nice, very approachable, and a true credit to the city and to this franchise. And we hope you can get back up here soon.
Oh, guys, thank you so much. I mean, I had the greatest time in Cincinnati, and to see all these people again and come through my illnesses and all that kind of stuff and still be a Bengals fan, I couldn't ask for anything else. You know,
That's good stuff.
Being nice to people is just what I do. You know, I've always been a nice person. I always tried to be nice, treat people. My mother used to say, treat people like you want to be treated yourself. So that was my motto. You know, that's the way I got it.
All right, so here's a story, Gary, that somebody's putting in the chat area. There's no freaking way I would remember this, but we're gonna see if you do.
Okay.
So Ron Boyle, a good friend of ours, said Gary got our Bengal bug, I guess a Volkswagen, in the Spinney Field in 1981 for my brother Tim. Tim painted it. Gary got all the Bengal players and even Paul Brown to come over out and sign that Volkswagen bug. So, do you remember that at all, Gary?
Unfortunately, I don't. But you know that with my mind right now, it's kind of. But I do remember. Let me go back for just 1 second.
Sure.
I do. The thing that I most remember was when we came to the AFC Championship game, and we saw these 4 guys with their shirts off, and it spelled Bengals. And I just looked out, and when I looked out, seeing those guys, I looked out and I saw somebody. I don't know if it was a Volkswagen or not, but they were driving over the frozen Ohio River. And I'm going like, why are you doing that? So at the game was over. The countdown of the game was over. We'd won. And I heard somebody say, the Cincinnati Bengals are headed to the Super Bowl. And I just went nuts. I'm going like, oh my God. So make a long story short, I know you guys don't have all the time in the world, but the other thing that happened was when we got to the Super Bowl, Diana Ross was standing on the sideline beside me, singing, getting ready to sing the national anthem. And I was sitting there and I looked at her like, oh my God, Diana Ross is sitting right here. And she's just cool as hell. And she's just sitting. So she she went to do the national anthem. And I'll never forget that. Those 3 things happened. The guys with the shirts, the people driving over the frozen river, and then coming over to the Super Bowl. Those are 3 of the highlights of my life.
All right, Gary. So we got another question. Brandon again. There's a couple of people asking. Do you remember who you got traded for when you went to Atlanta?
Yeah, I did. I got traded from the Bengals to Atlanta. Had a good opportunity to play there again, and they were just good people, man. I mean, the Falcons, a lot different than the Bengals, because the Bengals were in a winning format, and the Falcons were building. So I got a chance to meet a lot of guys, play with a lot of guys, and that's how I got to the Falcons.
So it wasn't a trade for another player or something? You were just done with your contract, or?
Actually, I don't remember.
You know, Jimmy, I'm guessing the way the Bengals traded back then, it was probably for a draft pick.
Yeah. They're not going to get away with without getting a draft pick.
Yeah, too funny. All right, so one more thing. We gotta get you to. I know you've got so many Paul Brown stories, Gary. So give us a fun one that our viewers would love. Something funny. PG-13, GB, PG-13. We got a lot of young viewers too.
Paul was just an amazing guy. That's all I can say. And the funniest story that I can tell you with the PG people, Paul, we had a bunch of guys making a lot of noise, and all of a sudden, Paul Brown opens the door real close, and everybody was in there, running around doing whatever they wanted to do before practice. And when the door opened, Paul Brown walked through the aisleway, and what he said was, he had a car that was parked in his parking space, and another guy was parked in his space. So, so Paul goes, he walks through the room, everybody quiets down, and he goes, somebody in the car, in their car with the license plates tag, Ziggy's one, whatever the number was on there, move it, just like that. The guy got so scared that he got out of the parking space and left. All the guys got back in control and just sat there and listened to Coach Brown. That was the hardest, one of the toughest guys I've ever met, because he, in addition to all the things that he did for football and inventing chin straps or whatever it was, I forget what he did, but when he came into that room and shut up everybody, I mean, there was not a person in the room that would talk after he said what he said. So that's one of my stories.
So wasn't that the union rep who was getting in there to talk to the players?
That's
that wasn't
who it
his
was.
story?
That's who it was. Yeah, and the union rep parked in Paul's spot.
That's good. Well, we've heard that before. That's funny. That's good.
Let me tell you one more thing.
Sure.
It's funny. We had practice every day at 3:00, and I decided that I was going to go to lunch, and I left lunch at and when I got back from lunch, they moved practice up early to 1:30. So Coach Greg,
Oh,
you know where I'm going with this?
yeah.
So
It wasn't
all of a
pretty.
sudden- no. So all of a sudden, here I am riding. I think all I got to do is just go get dressed and blah, blah, blah. Well, anyway, they moved practice back from 3:00 to 1:30. Can you imagine the fear in my heart when I was driving up through the parking lot? So I go inside, I run inside, and I came with the most speed I've ever had in my life to change clothes. And when I came back, everybody was already on the field, warming up or whatever they were doing. So I figured, I'm good. I ain't got to worry about this. So as soon as I get down and start stretching, all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose. Coach Greg yelled at me. I almost peed in my pants. I was that scared. So he came out and he said, "Don't you ever do this." So I said, "I know, Coach, I know." But anyway, I got dressed. I got on the field, and that was it. We never said anything else about it after that. But I tell you, that was two men, Paul and him, that I feared. I definitely feared those guys.
I was just going to ask you, Gary, who would have been worse to have crawling all over you, Forrest Gregg or Paul Brown? I'm told that sitting through films with Paul Brown, even if you guys won big, was not a happy Monday morning.
No, it was not. Coach Brown, God rest his soul, he was a, what do you call it, not a mathematician, but anyway, make a long story short, he did everything by the book. All the film, all the players' moves, everything that guys did, he was on top of all that. And I didn't know how he could do some of the things that he did. He was the guy that got everybody's attention. That's one thing that I can tell you. And he did it in a way where there was no need to ask him to do anything, because he told everybody what to do, when to do, and how to do. So I love that guy. I always love him and respect him. And rest in peace.
Yeah, good stuff. All right. Hey, GB, I tell you what, man, I know we got you longer than we told you. Thank you so much for being with us. And again, just to remind everybody, Glory, the Struggles for Yards, we talked a little bit about here earlier today. When that is published here in a few weeks, that link's available. We will be sharing that on all our social media platforms. Yeah, that is a book you need to add to your library for sure. So some really cool stuff in there. So, GB, man, we appreciate you, man. It means a lot. Thanks for being part of this. And again, like we always tell you, man, we love talking to the Bengal OGs, the Bengal legends, man, because we don't want today's fans to forget about those guys from the 70s and 80s either, man. So we appreciate you so much, GB. You know that.
Well, thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you guys another time. And again, if I can help you recruit other players, don't hesitate to ask.
GB, I'll be calling you, brother.
All right, take care.
All right, thanks, big dog. See you, buddy. Thank you.
Happy Easter.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Same to you.
He's fantastic.
Just the best dude. So I didn't get a chance to talk about Bobby Burley, his wife. She was with us prior to the show starting, and man, I tell you what, those two are just the best people in the world. So you can tell just by hearing Gary talk what kind of person he is, man. So it's good stuff. Hey, let's change the gears a little bit here. Let's talk about again. I know Jungle to the Hall, June 10th. We will be at the Banks from 1 to 4 o'clock that day. We have tons of players going to be down there. We're working out the details, guys. I know I keep telling you this, but this is a really big event down there for 3 hours. So just stay tuned. Just save the date. Doesn't look like we're going to be charging tickets or anything like that, but we've got some other things we're trying to work through on some of this stuff. But stay tuned. We still got more than 2 months. We're over 2 months away still from Jungle to the Hall. So that's going to be a blast, the biggest one yet. Let's talk some Bengal free agency, Tom. And guys, anybody watching right now, throw out any questions you have, because we wanted to talk a little bit of free agency, but man, specifically, it seems like Joe Burrow, Tom, has made some tight ends the last few years a whole lot of money. Hayden Hurst this past year, CJ Uzama the year before, and now we got somebody else stepping in the wings here. So talk about one of our new free agent signings, Irv Smith.
Yep, Irv Smith Jr. Great football bloodlines. And it came out of Alabama with that reputation of being able to catch the ball. I don't know if he's going to be called an elite blocker at all, but he certainly, when he's healthy, can catch the ball and help move the chains. But that's been the key. He has not been able to stay healthy these last couple of years. His injuries are not the type that, will drag him down or hold him back in the future. They're not nagging injuries. He's completely healed and good. But he came in on a true prove-it contract, and the Bengals certainly got a true bargain. A second-round draft choice, All-American out of Alabama, who played very well as long as he could stay healthy up in Minnesota. He hasn't been the last 2 years, and the Bengals signed him for a little under $2 million. He gets to $2 million with certain incentives, but a fantastic sign for the Bengals, and he is truly enthusiastic to come here. He turned down more money to play with his college QB, Tua Tagovailoa, in Miami, to come here and play with the Bengals. He is completely betting on himself. He is very enthused to play with Joe Burrow in this offense, and he feels he's openly said he might be the last piece for this offense to get us to and win the Super Bowl.
Yeah. I mean, I'm excited about some of the guys here. They signed, obviously, Orlando Brown signing. There's still some work to do, and I think we also have the draft. We're going to see the Bengals draft a running back, probably not first round, second, maybe third round, but the Bengals will be drafting a running back here, is what we're hearing as well, Tom.
Yeah, between rounds 2 and 4, I think once we get past the first round, a running back is a big possibility, a probability. It's going to have to happen, and who knows what else is going to happen. We're starting to. You and I talked about a couple times during the day. There are multiple reports out now that the Bengals and Joe Burrow have talking. Katie Blackburn said as much. She said, just the beginning of talks, but now we're hearing that those talks may have progressed a little bit, and it sounds like Joe wants to be here. I know you and I want him here. I haven't talked to anybody who doesn't want him here. That includes my very elderly aunt who would follow the Bengals scores. She's not very elderly, but follow the Bengals scores, but would never watch a full game till Joe Burrow came to town. And now she watches every game, the whole game, just because of him. Everybody wants him here. So that's the next step. And, we're going to have to ask one of our guests with a little more inside knowledge as to if some of the names that we've grown accustomed to are still going to be here come training camp, because there are ways to free up some salary cap money for both he and T. Higgins. So we'll see what the future holds there. But no, Irv Smith, a very solid signing. And I think that might be about it until maybe the draft or right after. They certainly need a tight end who can block, who can help with that inline blocking. If they don't get the right guy, they may want to, call Drew Sample and see if they can get him back. Trey Flowers had a specific role. He was the Travis Kelce killer. We didn't have him in the AFC Championship game this year. We lost the game. So we'll see, to add depth, special teams depth, and like I say, to help cover the tight end, which has historically been a Bengal weakness. We may see Trey Flowers back, and I would not, as every day goes on, free agent prices at this point drop. I wouldn't completely shut the door on Eli Apple. You have to have cornerbacks are probably, in my opinion, more important than edge rushers, because with the way teams throw nowadays, if you don't have guys that can cover and rush the passer, but if you don't have guys that can cover, you have no chance on defense. And as we saw last year, we really got lucky when our top cornerback went down in Chitty. We had guys, Cam Taylor-Britt was able to step in, and we went on a long winning streak. We only lost one game, and that was the AFC Championship after that. So,
hey, Tom, and what's funny, Orson G here, he said, I wouldn't be surprised if that happened like this, depending on who falls in that draft. He's saying round one offensive tackle, round 2 tight end, round 3 running back. That's a very real possibility. Who knows? Depending on what happens that first round, who slides.
Who knows what is on their board, how they have guys ranked. It depends on where they're ranked. But again, they put themselves in a position where their board and the most talented player will dictate who they pick. We really don't know what's going on with Jonah Williams. The Bengals haven't said anything. He said he wants to be gone. It's hopefully we're going to have some guests on here as the month progresses that can answer the question. What do you say to Jonah Williams? Do you sit him down and say, listen, we understand. You feel you're a left tackle. You want a big contract. You wanted to prove it by playing left tackle for us this year. That's not going to happen. Our best team has Orlando Brown at left tackle, but we want you to transition to right tackle and help us get to and win a Super Bowl and show the league you're a top league tackle. Right tackles get paid too. Look what Mike McClinchy got from the Broncos.
Right.
4 years or 5 years, $75 million. It was right about what Orlando Brown got for us to play left tackle. So, are they still figuring on Jonah coming back? We don't know. If not, trade him. You free up $12.6 million in salary cap room, which we know we can use, and get a pick. But then I'm not sure. That might be something that happens draft weekend. I don't know if you can trade Jonah till you have an answer at right tackle. I'm not sure. I'm with you. I'm not sure with Cody Ford there. God love him. Glad he was here. Love his attitude. Glad he came here. But, I don't know if I'm willing to trust Joe Burrow's health with him quite yet. Is it Jackson Carman? I thought Jackson played his tail off at left tackle last year. But, how many different positions are we going to throw this guy in? And there's nothing wrong with having some quality depth at left tackle too. So, I don't know if you can trade Jonah until you have everything settled at right tackle.
Yep, with you. All right, let's go ahead and go right into this here. Let's go.
It's the 2-minute warning.
2-minute warning, Tom. Go ahead and kick us off, brother.
We're off next week. Happy Easter to everybody.
Happy Easter. Yeah.
Have a safe and fun time with your family. Certainly hope you do. We will be back in 2 weeks, and we're going to need a lot of your help. We have our friend who when we discovered him, he was simply deep fried. But Brian Bosarge from NFLDraftCountdown.com is our first guest. And Jimmy, have you secured our second guest yet?
We do. Monty Montague with the Cincinnati Bengals, the merchandise manager for the Cincinnati Bengals, is going to be with us the following week as well with Brian Bosarge. So he's going to talk about all the new stuff coming into the pro shop and timing and what's coming. And so Monty's a great dude. Monty runs the entire pro shop. So anything you see in the pro shop, Monty's the one setting all that stuff up. So we've got Monty Montague from the Bengals and Brian Bosarge coming here in a couple weeks.
And with both those guys, any questions you're going to have, we're going to have, we're going to talk to Brian and certainly ask him some questions on your behalf. But we also want your questions. And with draft every year, there are a ton of questions. And we like to go ahead and talk about our draft night schedule, Jimmy?
Let's do it, brother. Go ahead and hit it.
We will be on Thursday night, round 1 of the draft, 7 o'clock. We will have Brian Bosarge back from NFL Draft Countdown, the best place to go to for NFL draft information on the web. But Brian will be back with us for certain times. James, myself, and Brian, last-minute rumors, last-minute speculation, all the latest mocks, who they see being available at number 28 for us. And we will also have an on-site in Kansas City reporter. I don't know if we can divulge his identity yet, but he's on screen with me. There's a hint, but he'll be checking in. So please stay with us. First night of the draft, round 1, check in with us about 7 o'clock. James and I will be on taking you right up to the draft coverage on whichever network you choose to watch.
Tom, my goal that day at the draft is to interview the commissioner and bring him on the show. So we'll see if I can make that happen.
Does that mean I can't be on that night? You guys know how I feel about the commissioner.
Hey, this is sitting right next to me. I think he knows how we feel about the commissioner.
Yeah. the commissioner is not coming on.
We'll get Brandon's going. We'll make Brandon get him on. But guys, we appreciate everybody being with us tonight. We will have a great Easter next week. Spend time with friends and family. Enjoy your Easter. We'll see you the following week with Monty Montague from the Bengals and Brian Bosarge. But we appreciate everybody for being with us tonight. We love you guys. We'll see you next. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you so much. Hoo day.
Hoo day, everybody.